What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Reclamation. My name is Malia, and this is episode 1 of the intimacy series that I have been precursoring for quite some time. And now it is here for you to indulge in, to enjoy. This intimacy series is in collaboration with Hillary Stark. You can find out more about her, links in the show notes. Also, she was a guest on my podcast, episode number 36, titled The Intimacy You're Really Looking For. It was that episode, that meeting, that discussion that became the launch pad to this intimacy series, as we both recognized the value in discussing further a lot of the things that we talked about on episode number 36. Hillary and I both recognized how we live in a society that has become disconnected from its roots, disconnected from the wisdom of the body, from intimacy that feels safe, and from the power of a fully embodied presence. For so many of us, it has been safer to live from the neck up, thinking, analyzing, intellectualizing, performing. I know that I got really good in existing in that area. While the rest of us, the rest of our body, the parts that feel and that move and that hold desire, have been conditioned into silence. This series is an invitation to reawaken the whole body, to unlearn the fear, the shame, and disconnection that keeps us from trusting ourselves and experiencing intimacy in its fullest, most alive, most life-giving form. This sojourn will be discussed through the lens of somatic experiencing and tantric embodiment. As the somatic experiencing is both something Hillary and I are trained in, and Hillary brings in this another layer of tantric embodiment that is so the language needed to discuss this intimacy series. We'll explore what it means to truly feel at home in ourselves, to reclaim our pleasure and power, not always necessarily connected to sex, and to build relationships that honor our deepest truth. Again, this is not just about sex. This is about presence, aliveness, and reclaiming the sacred connection to our bodies. Okay, so that is the intro to the whole series. As for this particular episode, we began with talking about where it begins. Feeling safety in your body, establishing a trust in relationship with our body. Without that, there is no moving beyond. So in this episode, Hillary and I discuss that safety, why it's important. We talk about how we can be tricked into thinking we are safe, but really we are enacting a trauma response we are so used to that it feels normal. We talk about the evidences of feeling safety and coming to experience heaven on earth right within our own body. And we talk largely about attunement too. Think of deep listening with all of your senses. Hillary actually says in this episode about attunement, she says, attunement is, can I see, hear, feel your energy, your emotion? Can I attune to you and see past the masks? And what we're going to do is talk about starting with ourselves. Can I see myself? Can I hear and feel myself, my energy, my emotion past my own masks? Throughout this episode, a couple questions to have in mind. Number 1, what is your definition of safety? This might be something important to write down before you begin or even after. It will help you to acknowledge where you're sitting with this idea of safety. And perhaps you can see conditioning regarding what it means to be safe. the second question is, who do you feel you can be undone around? And you'll understand that as we get into the episode. And of course, the end of the episode, some how-tos, where to begin, is really, really just reiterating the past few episodes that I have published, which is all about this challenge once again to slow down our lives, start to notice ourselves, be in curiosity with our experience, with what is going on so naturally within ourselves. Okay, the next episode in this intimacy series is forthcoming, though it will not be published consecutively. So just be watching for it. I'll make sure to label it really clearly for y'all. Links for Hillary found in the show notes. Link for myself found in the show notes. There's opportunities for one-on-one mentoring and coaching with either of us. Again, I'm on YouTube if that is your preferred platform to watch this content. And stick around because there is definitely a vein of creation that Hillary and I have connected into together, and some more offerings coming your way in regards to living the intimate life, living the fully embodied life, discovering Eros or Eros, however you like to pronounce that. Hillary and I both pronounce it differently. And just being alive, fully alive in our whole selves. And just the magic that can come from living a life that way. Okay, let's get on with the episode. I hope you enjoy. Why don't you open up with this idea of intimacy? Because I really love how you speak about it. And with Stark Naked, with your business, it is something you lead with anyway, bringing people into an idea of intimacy is like a way of life.
One of the things one of my tantra teachers would say was intimacy. Into me, I see. Mm-hmm. So intimacy for me has just been through the heart, the connection of letting yourself be seen. And I think in society, so big. Yeah, I think in society we have this culture of being conscious and being awakened and being aware. And I think sometimes it's like can be masking of putting on this persona of what does an awakened person or a conscious person or someone doing their inner work look like, when in real intimacy it's letting yourself be seen for all the parts. The messy, the unconscious, the conscious, the inner child, the teenager, the attempting to be the conscious adult. And so intimacy for me is letting yourself fully be seen.
We had this beautiful attunement together before we started. And it was really an exercise for myself. But something you said there I love, and I would love to make sure it's a foundation in this whole series, is you took me from a space of being really cerebral and like trying to figure out as I was feeling, right? Instead of just allowing the feeling to be there. Something you just said about intimacy with this podcast, with my audience, with your audience, there is a lot of messaging on spirituality and awakening. But in that awakening, how we can actually further armor ourselves even, or put up a facade of like, look at how I show up awakened. But you, in our little session before we began, it was a de-armoring of all of that. Even me allowing you to see me took effort, took time. And I think that having that be a foundation of our whole discussion of everything that we're going to talk about is remembering this intimacy is allowing ourselves to be seen, which is a task.
Yeah, it's like I find a lot of people want to be like, I just want to be on the other side of the work. I just want to I want to be awakened. I want to be conscious. I want to be aware. And it's like, well, it is unconscious until it's conscious.
Yeah.
And part of the journey that I love to capture and talk about and really be authentic or stark naked about is like the real, the raw, the naked, the vulnerable, the messy, the ugly, the shadow parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
That, oh, well, they can't see that, or I can't talk about that. And it's like, well, that's where the medicine and the magic and the work and like the true vulnerability, intimacy, heart connection happens, is when we can take off this armor of I have to present a certain way, or take off the mask of well, because I'm so far in my healing journey, or because I'm this practitioner, or because I'm this podcast woman, or, you know, whatever. It's like,
that was totally part of my whole de-armoring. I was going through all those things.
Yeah, these personas we put on, and realizing like intimacy and vulnerability and heart-centered connection and felt experiences, and really being in the body, the embodiment is like, it is primal, it is messy, it is erotic, it is unpredictable. And when we try to control or manipulate or put in a box or justify, well, it has to be this way or that way, like that's where the whole spiritual bypassing, or you're making it take longer than it has to take because you're just not willing to drop into, let's just go straight to the root. Let's just go right to the heart.
Yeah.
You know, you think of children and our innocent, like pure selves, like it's straight from the heart. It's honest, it's real, it's simple. I feel this, I don't like this, I want this, I don't want this, and we make it complicated.
So complicated. So complicated. Yeah. That was a really good sum up of our attunement exercise we did before we began. For myself, my experience on the end of that was like, how long, body, are you going to take before you just let down all of the armoring? And of course, throughout the series, we'll talk about, we're not asking people to walk around de-armored in a world that is not predominantly safe for that kind of behavior yet, but kind of like a learning of what that feels like and why you want to step into that, welcome that into your life, and all of the nuances that we can find in that. Something you said will help lead us into episode 1 in this series, which is embodiment and feeling safe in our bodies. I think for both of us in the work that we do, we understand that to get anywhere in the work, to make progress in our desire to, whether it's be awakened or just heal, live more fully, we understand the foundation comes from being safe in your body. Because if I can't be in my body, then I can't process and I can't discover even what's there. And so episode 1 of our series about embodiment and being safe in your body. Let's dive into that. Let's talk about maybe attuning. And I've said it a few times. We began this morning with attuning. Why did we do that? Why is that a practice that leads to embodiment, safe body.
Yeah. Taking it all the way back to childhood, to our roots, our beginning of, human evolution. Attuning for me is, can I see, feel, and hear your breath, your body, your energy, your emotion, your sensations? Can I attune to you and see you past the masks, the facade, the persona that we put on to create a false sense of safety, to fit in, to behave, to belong? And I think they always say you're only able to go as deep with another as deeply as you've gone first within yourself.
Yeah.
So the attuning starts first. You have to understand, what am I seeing, feeling, hearing, and experiencing within my own body and myself, within her body and her own self, before we can learn how to be authentically embodied. Right? Like, I have to know what's going on with my own system, my own feelings, my own emotions, my own energy, before I can understand the other person. So attuning is often the first thing I dive into with clients of, okay, let's just start to notice, can I connect mind, body, spirit?
Yeah.
Eros? Can we connect all of the 4 or 5 bodies to say what is here, right? Attuning to myself and then attuning to you.
Yeah.
And realizing, what does safety feel like?
Right.
Right.
Like, what actually does it feel like? Because you talked about putting this false sense of safety that we do, and we can talk about all the ways that we do that so that people can maybe self-reflect in their own lives. And it, like, attuning, learning to feel yourself first, it's just like that object lesson that's so well known about the fill your own cup first, because if you don't, you can't fill someone else's cup. It just totally makes sense that if you don't know how things feel here, how can you attune to somebody else as well?
And realizing, like, a lot of us, if we would have been seen, felt, and heard as children, we would have stayed in our safe body. We would have expressed our emotions. We would have spoken our truth. We would have had our boundaries and our consent. But because we've come from such a society that's in decades, fight and flight, trauma, unsafety, it's like, well, my parents didn't know how to be in their true safe body and have regulated nervous systems and meet their own needs fully. So we then learn, I need you to be safe for me, or I need you to behave so I can have safety, or what I think is felt safety. And realizing, yeah, it has to start with you. But a lot of people, like, what does that look? What does that look and feel like?
Right.
How do I do that?
Right. And I think that's key, because we're not necessarily moving away from war.
No.
Right. And we talked earlier about how this feels like an essential tool to navigate what is currently our climate of
unsafe, dysregulated
there
bodies.
you go. There you go. I was like, what label do I want to put? The climate of unsafe, dysregulated bodies. So good. What's currently that, and what we can kind of foresee will continue for some time. And the hope is that enough people will learn safe, regulated body to make a change on a massive scale. And that's, I think, something we perceive both as the necessary tool in creating something I always like to promote on anything that I'm teaching, is just the more beautiful world that we know is possible. And okay, so let's start talking about some of the education here on embodiment. So with attunement was more like I'm listening and feeling and learning what that is. so that I can listen and feel and learn you. And that creates this sense of intimacy, right? So attunement versus embodiment, or how they are also shared. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, attunement, I feel, is the initial step to understanding, the gateway to how do I get into my safe body? What does being in safe body feel like? What does it feel like to be with another person that feels safe? Mm-hmm. And then tuning into embodiment, getting into the body. I was sharing with you earlier, oftentimes we can get into the mind, right? Yeah. It's so powerful. And how you can have all these thoughts coming in. And you were sharing earlier when we were attuning, you had all these noticings and awarenesses through your mental mind, and then noticing like, okay, I'm starting to notice it in my body. And it's that awareness of a lot of people don't know how to, or haven't fully understood the felt experience of, right, oh, this is out of my head into my body. Right. And I was sharing with you earlier, you can't process a thought and understand what's happening and feeling it simultaneously. Oftentimes I was like, okay, come into the body, feel what you're experiencing, let the emotion or the sensations lead, and then it will tell you, oh, that's what that was, or oh, yes, now the clarity comes. And oftentimes in society, we have praised and pushed this mental, like, be smart, read, study, like, do all the things, all this doing. And we're realizing to come into the body, the embodiment is more about being. Yeah. And you can't do and be both at the same time, at least not essentially. It's like a practice of learning how to flow them together.
Yes. And I think what you said is so important, where we're used to beginning here and labeling what's going on, versus embodiment starts in, which attuning will help you get there, and letting that message reach your brain, going the other way. And we did talk about the difference between like, oh, I feel angry, versus there is tightness in my chest, and that's what I feel. And maybe it's anger, but first I feel tightness in my chest. And so learning embodiment is learning sensation versus emotion. So sensation first, that can lead to emotion. I love that, how you made that picture for me, because usually we start here and go body. We're going to start body and let it connect. Because it does. It just speaks itself. It will speak.
The body keeps the score. The body remembers. Mm-hmm. It's in the body. Mm-hmm. It's held there, the trauma body, which leads you into safe body, trauma body. It's like, if you're not aware of your trauma triggers, fighting, flighting, fawning, freezing, if you're not actually connected into your body and using that breath to feel and come from here up instead of here down, then you don't get to those points of noticing, okay, how do I regulate my nerve? When am I dysregulated? When am I regulated? When am I noticing I'm grounded or ungrounded? It's like, I was reading something the other day and they talked about like, you can't think a thought of being relaxed. Relaxed is a feeling. You have to feel relaxed.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So when people talk about mindfulness or like grounding, it's like, oh, I need to get grounded. I'm going to think about breathing into my feet. I'm going to think about, it's like, no, you have to do it or be it. You have to get into it. You walk through the grass, or you lay down, or you push the breath down into those lower chakras. It's like your mind can't think what your body, like, you know what I mean? They can't do the one does one does the other. Yeah. And together they work beautifully, but you have to understand this is the essential tool first.
Right. And I think that's what we're trying to do, is just kind of like flipping it and beginning in a different space, because the messages that come are way more, I'm going to say correct, because it comes from what's actually being held, versus we're going to try to intellectualize what we're feeling.
What's the story?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's the story here? And so like in somatic practicing, something that you do first is you guide people to be in their feet, but you have to start with them in their mind. Put your mind in your feet until they can arrive in their feet, right? They are their feet. I am my feet. And then you can move from there, because the script is being flipped. It takes coaching, it takes practice to learn how to even be in the body versus being the mind, and what that feels like differently. And you talked about the nervous system responses, which is so good. And part of learning embodiment, part of learning attunement is also learning your responses. You can do that by kind of regressing back to, well, in that moment, what was my desire to do? Like, what was my reaction? How did I show up? And you can kind of assess whether you were a fight or flight, freeze or fawn. In our attunement this morning, the difference was being in a moment that was challenging for my body to be in, right? And feeling that there was, for me, like this sensation of being here and then in, and then here and then in. And it was happening rapidly because my body was seeking to flight, right? And then what's coming out of my mouth, you saying it was funny when I was making jokes and trying to pander to my uncomfortability, right? And so you could hear that, but also I could feel like this in and out happening, which I stayed still. I wasn't leaving. So you couldn't see and intellectualize that I was in flight. And so you don't know that you're in flight until you learn to feel like, this is what I'm feeling. This sort of weird thing is, I'm in and I'm out. I'm in and I'm out. I'm here and I'm ready to do this work. And no, just kidding, I'm not. And that's what's happening. So then you can assess more easily. Oh, you're in flight. You're in your trauma response right now. So
we've talked too about speaking to fight and flight, freeze, fawn, all the four trauma responses to being triggered when we feel unsafe. You talked about the necessary importance of being connected to that awareness of the fight and flight response, and how it does serve a purpose, and having a healthy relationship with the fight and flight, the sympathetic nervous system, versus this thought of like always having to be regulated or always having to be calm and grounded, like how that serves a purpose.
Yeah, I think it's a good distinction to make, because there's a lot of education out there about regulating the nervous system, which is really good because it's just bringing people to the same place we want them to be, which is awareness of, check out what you're doing all of the time. If you want to experience a different way of living life, then one place to start is to notice that you're dysregulated in your nervous system. But what can happen with that type of education is this idea that kind of aligns with the spirituality and being awakened, is like, I'm always in Zen. And if I'm not in Zen, then I'm not doing it right. Or, oh no, there's more to work on, or stuff like that. But while it can point to, oh, there's something here for you. Yeah, it's important to know that our nervous system is designed in a certain way on purpose. The autonomic nervous system is going to include the parasympathetic and the dorsal
and
the sympathetic. And its job is just to be like, okay, let's assess the environment. What's going on? And it's so good we have that. And you had some really good examples of like why having the upregulation, which gets us into movement and action, and then also the downregulation, which puts us into a state of rest and recovery. where people think they should always exist in this place of like, I can take, it's more like the digestion is working well. I picture it like the dishwasher. Let's do this metaphor.
Okay.
It's the dishwasher, and sometimes you need to load it, and that would be the take action, right? And then it's washing, and that's more like I'm in my regulated state. I'm just washing, I'm humming. That's kind of like why the dishwasher came to mind, because we always like the sound of the hum of the dishwasher. It kind of feels like the job is done, and then you have it, it's clean, and that's more like the rest state, or it's drying, it's the rest state. So
yeah. And that ties into like when you're in safe body and you have a regulated nervous system. It's like, I like to use the green light, yellow light, red light, and not an analogy of like, okay, I'm driving down the road, and if I'm in, like, we call it happy, interactive, this rich life, this beautiful life,
the
like
traffic's flowing well,
like the sun's shining, the
playing,
and like I'm in just bliss state, right?
This
heart-centered and happy and safe body and regulated, and then it's like, okay, the light turns yellow, and so I'm going to slow down or speed up. And then it turns red, I'm going to stop and pause, right? And so when you're in safe body and you're regulated and you're embodied in your full, I'm able to have this human experience while having this blissful spiritual experience, I'm fully embodied, connected, and present. You're able to respond and stay in flow versus react and then have like a dislodging or like a bump that's traumatic or life altering, or sometimes it's like, okay, now I'm really thrown left or thrown right, and it's harder to get back to center. So the embodiment and the safety is so essential for making your healing work and your journey and your life, living that life purpose, like it just becomes more easeful, effortless, and flowing, where things aren't as bumpy or rocky or jarring.
Jarring, surprising, or like the red light's great because if you're not paying attention, then all of a sudden the light's red and you slam on your brakes, you might run into somebody. And how understanding this within ourselves, we can actually start to recognize when that yellow light is there to help us to slow down before we have to slam on some brakes, right? And so it becomes a practice of existing in that ebb and flow rather than expecting for it always to be green and the sun is shining and the windows are down, right? It's just not the way that it was designed to function in its fullness. We talked about that too, and how it will lead through this whole intimacy series, the full expression of our lives and having it all be available to us, all the senses, so that we can exist in a more full way. I know that people understand to some level, because there's enough discussion about how we don't utilize most of our brain. And I feel like possibly part of it is that we don't even have access to it. We don't even know what is there, what is possible in the other parts of our brain we don't access. And it's like our body's the same. We don't utilize the full experience of our body for so many reasons. We just close up, cage up. In one of my episodes, we talked about the tree with the roots, and the trauma brings those roots up and in and tight, and how it's like, and with my own experience recently, I've been sharing with you the opening that's come to my life of experiencing like a sexual relationship in a way that is like, whoa, where was this? I know where it was. It was caged up, right? Tight in all of my body. And how much fuller and richer my life is. And like living in Eros, which is like a real life experience that's just full and wide and deep, like we want our roots to be. Go ahead.
Speak really quick too. People are like, well, what is it like to feel safe? Or
yes.
What is safety?
Okay, yeah, because we've kind of laid like, here's why you want it.
Yeah. And this is my own making up, my own doing. So it's just something I share with clients, or I often say among my rich relationships and friendships. Safety, or a safe person, or safe relationships for me are people that can be self-reflective, be self-aware, and self-accountable. And so going back to, the more I know about myself, the more attuned, the more embodied I am, the more regulated I am, the more expansive I can be in my self-awareness, my self-accountability, and my self-reflection. And with root healing in the chakra system, the root chakra connects to home, connects to 5 senses, connects to safety, food, water, shelter. Like, where my basic needs met, connects a lot to
belonging,
birthing, the tribe, the family unit, the home life. And so I often will say, the safer we feel, the more relaxed and regulated we are, especially as women. The 5 senses are heightened. So your taste buds, your food cravings and sensations can change. Your hearing, you hear things and pick up on things you didn't pick up on before. Your sensual body, like we talk about often in Tantra and Eros, like your body is an entire pleasure center. It's not just focused on the sexual, breasts or the yoni or the lingam. It's the whole erotic body, the whole erotic experience. And when you're in safe body and you're in feminine sensual expression, you do penetrate and experience life from the full body, from all the senses. And so to be in safe body, to be embodied, to have an intimate life, it's like the more richness you have from this full channel being worked on, working, tuned in, tapped in, turned on, the more you have that, like, so within, so without, that expression of I'm so connected here, so how could I not be fully connected externally out here? And I often talk about, to be able to be in attunement or intimacy or safe relationship, you have that balance of like reciprocity, the equal give and the equal receive, right? Yeah. And as women, when we connect more into our safe body and our intimacy and our sensuality, we're able to be more warm, wet, open, more heart-centered with like love, and it's flowing and it's free and it's expressive and warm and wet through the yoni. Our pelvis is relaxed, our womb is soft, our belly is open. And I say often, when you're wet or warm, it's not just a pleasure of, okay, I'm turned on, I want to be penetrated. This is a sure way of knowing I'm in safe body. The more we're warm, wet, and open, literally. Wow. And knowing like, oh, my body, this is how I know as a woman, my body is telling me like I'm present, I'm connected in, I'm feeling, expressing, and being here because she's showing me I'm here through. Wow. You think of the parasympathetic rest and digest, when everything is relaxed, it's lubricated, our bowels are moving, we're having regular bowel movements, we're having more like saliva or sensation with taste or pleasure.
I'm like everything, like my eyes can dry out, my throat can dry out. Like our skin dries out.
I love that you brought that up, because then, or I need lubrication. I need, all these external, like I need more beauty products. I need to do this. I need to do that. It's like, it all is from within. Like, we are a living organism, this living vessel. We self-regulate, right? We can, everything we have and we need is truly within here when we go inward and just say, well, no wonder I'm so dry. No wonder I'm so rigid. No wonder I'm so unsafe, because I'm so disconnected. I'm just living in this reality, which is often so depressing and painful and anxiety stricken.
Okay, hey everybody, we are going to take a quick time out so I can tell y'all about TBM, which stands for to be magnetic. TBM is a neural manifestation program that I have been doing now for over a year. I know. Manifestation is a hot buzzword right now, and there's a lot out there about the how, the what, the when, the where, and the why of manifesting. I actually love that. We are all different. I think it makes sense. There are a lot of different ways to go about anything, really. That being said, I am choosing to promote TBM. Not only is it science backed using neuroplasticity, EMDR, hypnosis, etc., to get you into alignment with your authentic desires, which means manifesting from the heart and the soul rather than the ego. But the program also supports my favorite theme, coming back home to ourselves. Outside of manifesting into my life the vibes that fit my authenticity, I've been able to uncover and heal so many layers of pain, shame, and conditioning that stood in the way of living a life where I feel whole and worthy inherently. Outside of any label, title, accolades, I'm worthy and whole because I just am. I am sharing TBM with you for that reason primarily. Coming back to ourselves, discovering our inherent worth, well, that is a reclamation worth living for. To learn more about TBM, check the show notes. I'll direct you to their podcast, a specific episode where you can hear all about the manifestation process. When you're ready to join the program with me, you can get 15% off the membership using my code MALIA, all caps MALIA, for 15% off. The link to the membership will also be in my show notes. Okay, love you all very much. Let's get back to the episode. So I'm gathering some of the ways that we can tell when we start to become embodied is because our senses open up to us. We start to see, feel, hear, notice life differently, and differently can equal like more fully and richer. And also there's a physical tell of for a woman being warm and wet, and that is like I'm definitely going to be in the notice of that and the exploration of that
and to know, like, you can think of that, it's not just like sensually or sexually, right?
Yeah.
The erotic part, it's like when you meet a woman, or just the energy of a safe, soft, feminine, like it's felt. It's like, oh, I just want to hug her. I just want to
sure,
yes. Her. I'm just so drawn to her. It's like that, the magnetizing that we are, we're the magnetic and they're the electric. It's like that awareness of what if more women could walk around in that? And same thing, like to speak to men, it's the same. It's like when you meet a safe masculine, does it just not want to make you like melt into them? Like,
yeah,
oh, I'm so, and then it relaxes us and it softens us and it opens us. And so for men to realize too, like the essentialism of them getting out of this like mental mind of like the doing and, you know, the action, the podcast, the reading, the go. It's like, that's what I love about this work, especially working with men in the embodiment and the intimacy, is like, it's very much a feminine energy of like, let me help you feel and breathe and soften and open and listen. And it is them connecting into their feminine energy, which so many of them have been shunned, shamed, told it's wrong, it's too girly, it's weak, it's right, you know, whatever, all the stories that society says, but it's safe, it's desired, it's regulated, it's necessary to change the way of the world, the way we relationship with our children, with our partners, with ourselves, with society. It starts with us.
Yeah. I'm like totally in it right now. I'm feeling all that and it's like digesting through my whole body. And I love that you just said change the way that we relationship. And I know so much of what we discussed for a lot of people will have first all of these layers of conditioning on like what's allowed, and being wet and warm. How can I see that any other way other than sexually? Because this is the only way it's ever been talked about in my life. And I have teenagers right now. And so like sexual things are heightened because they poke fun at it, or they'll like actions and things like that. They'll just be like, this is a sexual thing and we're gonna do it or create actions out of it. And like they're like coming up with all kinds of things. I'm like, are you serious that what you're doing with your face right now means this, right? And so I'm thinking back at my teenage self and like the idea of being moist and how that was like so taboo and cringe, and even to just approach and use the word like that, right? Yeah. Okay. So but then I love to look at nature, and I love to look at and see how it mirrors. And if I think of being moist in nature, I'm going to pick a fruit, and a fruit that is dry is usually discarded unless it's purposely dried. And I like dried apricots. They're really yummy. But what about a juicy apricot, right? And this is funny too, because I know like it's still sexual because we have the peach, right? And we have things like that. And it's big and it's juicy and it's luscious and it's desired. And how probably all of our system desires the juicy, the rich, the luscious versus the dried out, decayed way of existing. There's a word here that we talked about, like, living dead, living rigid, right? Yeah. And how,
well, and if you think about it, when people start doing their healing work and they start awakening and like lights start turning on and things start happening, it's like when you see people, they're lit up or they're glowing and you're like, what have you been doing? And it's like, I've been awakening and learning and understanding and remembering all of these things that like I've been dead to or told it's this way, it's not that way. And so when I talk about dead or rigid or disconnected from, it's like, that's not what we came here to do. Like nature is most beautiful. Yeah, there's a beautiful thing about like the dying, like the fall and the leaves falling and the trees and the winter. Like there's every season is necessary. So it's not like you have to be one extreme.
Well, and we have to remember that it cycles. Yes. We tend to hit that dead and stay dead. We don't cycle.
Yeah. And right. And realizing the life force, the juiciness, the blooming, the sprouting, the growing, the beauty, the richness of life is like, you have to appreciate one to have the other.
Yeah.
But realizing with the dead and the rigid, it's like, that's what keeps us sick and stuck. It's like, you can't live, this, again, the seasons, like they serve a purpose, but you have to learn to come into richness, fullness, aliveness. And a lot of people are, if you're constantly in your mind and in your brain and not in your body and not having the felt senses of like the emotions and the highs and the lows and the beauty and the creativity and the birthing, like, what's the point? What's the point of having a human experience? We came here to like have those senses, to be alive, to be.
Well, and I think that's kind of what's being rewritten, is just to open that up as a possible way of experiencing life. Because I think that if you ask the question, well, why did we come? There's a wide range of answers for people. Some people think we came to suffer so that we could grow and expand, right?
Like when you die, it's heaven. When you die, that's when it's joy. It's like, you guys are missing the point. Like, why can't you?
We're here to have a test to see if we can hack it, right? And just to reframing it into, there are challenges and there are dead parts of the winter where we do need to like withdraw or hibernate or even we create the kill off ourselves, right? But like let's rewrite this to having that be a part of also being able to experience the beauty. Yes. And what I'm kind of feeling into right now is, for me, this idea of being wet and moist throughout my whole self, and how that's like when the soil is wet and moist, it's able to grow more abundantly the beautiful things out of it, right? And it's like this picture's just being put together in my system of just it just allows for a more full experience of life, because you have access to water, you have access to water, and so then more can be nourished. I think it's interesting that we are kind of taking the safe body embodiment episode into that, because water is very mysterious still. But there's enough experiments out there right now that you can see how it is really its own intelligence.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think I'm having an epiphany that can't be articulated yet,
Well, and when you speak to the word water, it's like the baptizing, the blessing, the clearing, the cleansing, the growth, the renewal, like, again, the duality of life, the death, the growing, the black, the white, the messy, and moving from like intimacy, attunement, safe body. If you were to go into water, the ocean, it's like all these messy emotions and feelings and sensations, and how in society we have put things into a box through programs, through schools, through television, through media, of this is right and this is wrong. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the ocean or water or nature, like everything is flowing into the other thing, and nothing is actually controlled or contaminated or contained. It's like it's all ever growing, ever moving, ever evolving. And it makes me think of like the rigidity, the death, the hardness or the structure, and the shame, the fear, the guilt of, well, if you want to live a life, you have to be this, and you do this, and you go here, and you act this way and become this way. And you and I have talked a lot about safe body and intimacy and attunement, and realizing that true safety is not in black and white thinking, and true embodiment and true attuning and intimacy, like it's a flow, it's a weaving, it's a balance, it's a birthing and a beauty. It's not something to be contained or structured or
almost like defined. Really, this is the way that it is,
which takes me, I think that's why a lot of people have like when it comes to embodiment and healing work, a lot of people just want to be, well, just tell me the way, just give me the modules, like what is a session going to look like, or what is this work like. They want to have that safety clutch, that false sense of safety of, well, this is what I can expect, so that I can have control, so that I can have a knowing, or so I can have some assurity. But it's like, that's actually the very opposite. It's actually you learning your own trust, your own safety, your own assurity is through your own experience and your own inner journeying, inner navigating.
Yeah. And I think that that's what makes it tricky to kind of in the setting of a podcast where you're just trying to tell people this could be a more alive way of living for you, and you're going to need to let go of the life raft that you're holding on to and float in that ocean, because it's very scary and totally feels opposite of what you're trying to get, which is safety. This is like you're stepping into, this is where I'm not safe, OMG, and so people can't access that without maybe someone else in the ocean with them, showing them, oh my gosh, look, like I'm totally head above water, and also diving in deep to see and explore all that exists there as well. And I'm here alive and well.
Come with me.
Yeah, but yes, I am in this ocean.
When you were speaking to that, it makes me think about co-regulation and regulating, and I think we kind of spoke on that, right? About like where there can be this false sense of always being regulated or always being grounded or always seeming well, you're doing, I find that often, like with projections from like my family or friends or other people that are outside of, like, they have not yet dove into the deep ocean of inner work and somatics and trauma work and embodiment, because it feels scary, or it's kind of like you have to completely break open, crack open, like fully let yourself be essentially a mess so that you can filter through what are these limiting beliefs, these stories, these feelings, these, like, what is here that's actually my truth and authentic and real for me, versus like the programs or the stories or the situations that happen to me that no longer like are my truth or have to be held within me.
Yeah.
And where a lot of times like that false sense of regulating having to look like, oh, well, she's so regulated, and I'm like, no, she's just completely dissociated.
Right.
And we talked about those trauma responses of fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, and how so many people can be in that dorsal freeze state where they're like literally disconnected and dissociated and numbed out, but they appear like they're calm or regulated or grounded, and it's like, no, they're just really disconnected. And so being able to work with somatic practitioners and trauma-informed healers and embodiment coaches, it's like understanding where just because it appears to be a certain way or looks a certain way doesn't mean that it is. And getting out of that having to be perfect or letting it be messy, letting it get worse before it gets better. The death and the rebirth, and that recycling of all the layers of like, okay, we're just starting here, and it takes time, it takes intention and presence and like an ever evolving practice.
Yep.
But it's not a forever thing, like we do this healing work, we go in to understand, what have I forgotten, what do I need to remember, what am I believing that's false or untrue or misaligned for me, and then coming on the other side of back to that whole share of you saying like, we do this so we can come to living heaven on earth, we can have a life of richness and eros and fullness and expression and eroticism, like where it's like the pleasure of like a morning cup of coffee on the couch with the sun shining in the window, or like listening to the laughter of your kids getting ready in the morning, or rolling over and just like morning breath of your partner. That's just like the intimacy and the pleasure and the bliss of being human, having experiences.
And so what's really cool, and we talked about this too, is like this is a skill that we see in the future for humans, as a desire of a way of living. But my past 2 or 3 episodes have really talked about slowing down and being present. And so if we're giving anybody a starting off point, well, we both really recommend having a practitioner to help you, because this was so funny to me too. It's like, I'm sitting here in the moment with you and you're walking me through an attunement, and I am a somatic practitioner myself, and I have clients and I do this with them. But then I became the client, and you said something that was just like, hello, like, I'm going to tell you what you're doing. You said it after, and it was that I felt like, how come I'm needing this when I'm the practitioner, right? I'm I'm showing my weakness in this area, or I'm supposed to be always well embodied and well grounded because that's what I promote. That's what I teach. That's what I show as a way of being, right? So it was really good that you stated that allowance. Hello, yes, that's what you want to teach and forward in life, but you're still allowed to have things you're addressing, and to have the world around you get you out of body, right? But what I wanted to say to that specifically was this: if we're giving anybody a step, like a step to move forward into embodiment after this episode, to practice before we come into next week's episode, well, we do recommend practitioners to hold your hand through because it gets tight and challenging, and you don't want to do it, and almost you even can't let go of the life raft till someone is there showing you how to float, right? Is being able to come into presence and in the moment. So I know I'm a broken record right now in my episodes. It's what you said. It's like I roll over and there's the morning breath is there. And this is going to be fun for me because I can be present in the beauty, and the sun is shining and the warmth. And you said children laughing while they're getting ready for school. And I'm like, or fighting. Right? Or fighting, or I'm like trying to hustle them along. Being even present in that morning breath in my face and being like, oh, okay.
We're human.
There's the morning breath in my face. And how can I take that and have it be like this whole embodied experience, rather than being like,
get out of my
ew, face. And I disconnect from that as fast as I can, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to go approach, like, I'm not seeking out for those things, but
yeah. Well, and something as you're speaking to that I want to like, that comes up for me is, if I were to ask you, like, you think about feeling safe or being around a safe person that you can lean to, whether a friend or family or a practitioner, a teacher, what comes up for you? I feel like a lot of people will say one of my greatest gifts is like, I feel so safe with you. Like, you just have a way of creating safety where I can just feel safe.
Yeah.
And when they say that, it's like followed often by, I can just be myself. Like, I feel like I can just let my walls down, or I can just say anything, or I can tell you anything, and so true safety is not like surface level. It's not, the bow and tie. It's not perfect. It's actually the greatest depth of safety is the imperfection and the unbridled and
the morning complete, breath.
Yeah, like, I'm so safe to be all of my parts, all of my messy self. And I think in society, like, I think that's where I just get like irritated of like, fuck this, with practitioners and the healing space and the conscious community of like, it sometimes looks like it's this like glorified, enlightened, zen, perfect, like, oh yeah, I'm awakened, I'm aware, I'm so perfected in like everything I say is thought out before I say it. And it's like the actual safest, most authentic people and relationships, richest relationships we have with, whether it's our partner or our girlfriends or family members or whomever, it's like the safest spaces are the places we can be true selves and be the most, imperfect, the deepest, the most raw, the most real, the most
sweaty palms.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
I'm allowed to have sweaty palms with you.
Like, what is true safety and what is true?
Yeah.
Oh, you're enlightened or you're embodied or it's like we think it's one thing when in reality we get into the depths of it and it's like no, that it's the very essence of actually the opposite of what society tries to make us believe it is.
I love that.
Right?
So much. I love that, and I want to like have it be a wonderful landing place for the end of embodiment episode. It feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so moving out of this episode, people can practice slowing down again. And also, and I'm smiling because I'm like, I'm going to have this fun experiment too. And also, where do you feel like you can be messy and where you can be undone, right? And this is funny, and I'm going to share it. I don't even know why. I'm going to share it. It's like farting, right?
Yeah.
And who can you fart around? And
that's perfect.
Yeah. and it's funny to me too because my husband is very embodied and safe in his own body, and so he's free. And I think about he can fart all he wants, right? But me, when I do, what comes up for me is I feel suddenly undesirable, right? And like this is a part of me that needs to be tucked away into the bathroom. There's manners. We're not going to get into that, like, right? Yeah.
Time and place,
but in my own privacy of my home or my bedroom. And so maybe that sparks for some people, like, what is my idea of being able to be fully relaxed around somebody and fully safe? And I think for myself, honestly, Hillary, what we're doing is we're looking at Malia isn't safe around herself enough to be able to fart. Because my husband's not saying anything to me. It's a projection.
Yeah. And safety starts with attunement of self, going deep within self. And last thing I want to say to this, because I often find like a lot of people are, in marriages or long-term relationships, partnerships, and they're like, oh, he's my safe person or she's my safe place. But I challenge people to ask themselves, can you be unbridled? Can you be messy? Can you be undone? Authentic, natural, real, raw, stark naked with your partner? How many couples do you know where it's like, we don't do those things in front of each other? And aren't they the safest person? Aren't they the safest, your safe space, your safe person? So I think too, like just getting clear of like, maybe people think what we're saying is, oh, this all is true. Or maybe there's parts of, okay, I'll take that and leave that. Take what they will, but like challenging people just to say, what is your definition of safety? Mm-hmm. What is your definition of embodiment and intimacy? Mm-hmm. And whatever you find works for you, let that be what works for you. But like a lot of people, I don't even think can get in the mindset of, can I get curious? Can I get real? Can I become uncritical and just compassionate to like, what does this mean for me? And what is this? And I think that's part of the inner work, is just getting curious and willing to say, maybe there's a different way. Maybe, the more I know, the more that I'm finding I don't know. Like, there's so much we don't know. So yeah. Love that. Thank you.